Welcome to the Trailer Park Podcast, where we go full throttle on faith, freedom, and cash flow. We dive in and have the real, unfiltered conversations with industry professionals about buying deals and creating lasting passive income. Hey, James, welcome to the Trailer Park Podcast, man. So I wanted to catch up with you. And man, it's been a couple years. I mean, coronavirus knocked us off from seeing each other from, in the events. But I've always enjoyed catching up with you and Chris San Jose, and it seems like the crew's growing. So I wanted to touch base with you, man. It's good to see your face.
Yeah, man. You too. Good to see you. I'm really over this, no conferences, no getting together, no collaboration, but we're still making it happen in person. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for joining me, man. It's been a long time coming. I've been connecting with all the Yale crew and like Dana in Texas and Max and all these guys. I'm like, what? Yale is multiplying.
Yeah. I realized a long time ago, it's a big country and you can't cover it all. One broker can't cover it all. And it's so nice being able to just, have either a buyer that needs something in the market or a client that needs to sell a property in the market and just be able to sign it to a very competent person. And so that's kind of why we did something a little different, we think, versus every agent competing with every other agent. We did the whole regional, director model. And it just makes sense because there are local buyers and local owners and local nuances in every region.
Yeah.
And, it's impossible for one guy out of Florida or California or any other part of the country to cover the whole country and understand it. Let's be real. The really good deals are on the ground. They're regional. They're smaller players. They're smaller properties today. So we love it. I love it. Having good team members that really are competent in their market has been awesome.
That's cool, man. So growing the team and maybe a big portfolio sales, but I like to get into just like on a personal note. What are you excited about right now in life, and what fires you up? What gets you going and gets you out of bed?
It's all over the board, man. I miss volunteering. I was getting down to Haiti every year, which is a lot of fun.
Cool.
We're building houses down there. We had a big agricultural program we're doing, and it's very effective. It's awesome. We've actually created a very effective, sustainable food program that's now feeding an orphanage. It's feeding a school. And they're selling product and giving away product. It's amazing. So that's the fun stuff. That's the stuff I miss. I miss just, I'm looking forward to getting back to traveling. I'm hoping to go drive some crazy region. Right before coronavirus, I was going to go drive like all of Eastern Europe from Estonia down to Poland. I'm hoping to do that, something like that, a crazy trip, and go see some old former USSR bloc stuff. My joke was and this is absolutely not true, but I was going to go try making some kind of arms deal.
You do look like you're going to go sling some machine guns right now. No, I'm kidding.
I can't. That's what I'm excited about. Other than fun stuff going on in the business, but that's the personal stuff.
Hey, that's cool. And I'm with you on, it sounds like, another time we'll have to talk about the charity thing. That's really interesting. I've always wanted to do a trip like that. I've never actually gone on a trip, but my wife and I support some stuff too.
Yeah, it's one of the best ways to find a purpose is go serve other people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. And you gotta, no matter how much money you're making, you gotta continue to allocate a portion to growing that long term.
For sure. Yeah, look, I look at it as my, in a lot of ways, as my tithe. We're supposed to set aside our, 10%. And I find that, some guys, getting a better jet or a better, a nicer Ferrari to drive to their church doesn't move me as much as making sure kids in Haiti have food or, or going to school or, helping out. And anyway, that's what I absolutely donate to the to churches and even a lot of different charities in the U.S. But I like making a difference where I feel like it goes a long ways. That's
really cool, man. I didn't know that about you. I mean, we typically are doing a lot of business at the conferences, but that's really cool. That's really neat to hear, and I'm with you on that. And I'm actually excited. One of my questions is, and I'll just jump to it because we're kind of there, is like, I'm excited to grow this industry into kind of a more mainstream, but also have fun. Like, we joke around, you sell mobile home parks, trailer parks. We own and operate trailer parks. All my friends and like people around my wife's friends, they're like, what the hell do you guys do again? It's like, we buy mobile home parks or trailer parks, manufactured housing communities. But I'm excited to push it. And as a collectively kind of the younger guys that are coming up, push it into more of a mainstream realm. And so I'd love to get your take on what does that look like? What does mobile home parks look like in 10 or 20 years?
Sorry, I should put my phone on silent. So my apologies.
No worries.
I'm with you. I think that the industry is kind of at this interesting point where, there's an absolute change in the guard. Every day it's, I talk to, a family that their dad started this thing in the 50s or 60s, and they're having a generational change. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, they've let these things go. Familiarity breeds contempt or whatever it is. They've driven in and out of it 50 million times, and they just don't see the opportunity anymore. And occasionally that family will go in there and the next generation will go in there and turn it around. But usually what makes sense for them is to let the family go different directions before there's 19, decision makers and too many cooks in the kitchen or too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Yeah.
Let the grandkids or the kids go their separate directions and let somebody like you come in there, rejuvenate it, and make sure that property stays highest and best use. And I've seen some tremendous turnarounds and tremendous, redos of a neighborhood. And what's neat is I don't support, massive rent increases on the backs of residents with no value add.
Right.
But I've seen where people go in, they improve the community, make it a safer community, and then they need to get a return on their investment. And they do raise the rents. And sometimes by doing all that, there's a couple things that happen that are neat. The resident home value can stay the same or actually grow because they're advertising the property. They're building a website. They're putting on MH Village. They have somebody actually answering the phone. They have a central sales process for resales and for new homes. All these things that are common sense to us guys in the business, but to a family that's been doing it the same way for 50 years, we don't touch home sales. We don't even want to know what they're selling for. To me, that's a little disconcerting. You should know what your homes are selling for. You should be helping your residents sell. If an example, go in and buy a park in old rundown park in Phoenix. It's got $450 lot rent or $400 lot rent, and markets maybe up to $550 or $600. You go in there, you totally redo the place. You get rid of the dangerous elements in the property that have been just able to grow because nobody's tending the shop or nobody's proactively managing it.
Right.
You make it a safer place for the families that want to stay there. The families that don't want to stay there anymore can sell their house now for what they were going to get for it or more. So they haven't lost any equity. And you're making it a better place, safer place for families. And there's something else that I really like is there are parks doing after school programs. There are parks doing things that enhance these people's lives. Because let's face it, we get the old saying that George Allen used to quote was, we get the newlywed and the nearly dead. We also get...
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one.
Oh, that's an old George Allen quote. But there's also, we get a lot of first generation American. And so they're, basically they've been political ping pongs for people who don't want them to become legal, don't want them to be assimilated, want them to be cheap labor. And we can help them learn English, get skills, have an after school program for their kids, and do a lot. There's just a lot of ways you can enhance their lives, make their lives better. And in the process, it can be rewarding as a capitalist, and we can be making money because, as we both know, you take an old rough community and you fix it up. You get cap rate compression, you get some rent growth, and there's a lot of money to be made there.
Oh man. Well, and so we buy a lot of family parks, and as well as seniors. So we have a good blend, but that's a really great idea. I've been kind of noodling on what's the best use of a clubhouse in a family park. And a lot of the times they're not the huge ones. The senior parks have the big ones that are in place, but to have some type of when I was growing up, I went to a rec center, and it just, put some good utilitarian furniture in there, a couple ping pong tables or a pool table and a ping pong table and a little snack bar, and then someone to kind of organize that, make sure kids aren't getting into trouble.
I'll tell you this too, Blake. There's a lot of nonprofits that are looking for a place to set up. I've got clients. I've seen them they've got the food bank dropping off food. They've got the local charities dropping off clothing. They've got an after school program that's ran by a charity. Let's be real. At the end of the day,
that's a lot of extra running around and work if you don't know how to do it, and licensing and the whole nine.
Yeah, you don't directly want to be responsible for running that unless you've got a 400 space community and you have economies of scale.
Right.
But if it's something you could do, and you could sub out to a great local charity, and find somebody who's got a passion for that. Maybe they're retired, maybe they've got another income and they do this after hours or after school, so there's a lot of ways to do it and add value to people's lives without making your life more complicated.
I love that. And what do you think about seniors? Where do you think that's kind of headed? And when you looked at Desorama, exactly what you said there has happened. There was a lot of value add, a lot of electrical and some plumbing issues, and the standard stuff that you got to deal with, clean it all up. But we have like a huge clubhouse that we're sectioning off and making like a nice coffee corner hangout spot with TVs and you name it. But it's like, I think it's like 4,000 feet under roof in Phoenix. Yeah. So we decided to build a couple walls and AC a certain section rather than cranking air on the whole thing. But like, how do you grow that sense of camaraderie and community, like you're saying, in the seniors park?
What I've seen work well for the owners that I've dealt with over the years was they actually have the residents create an activities committee and nominate a president. It's all resident ran. And you basically let them come to you and say, guys, look, we're going to allocate so much a year. Maybe it's, a couple $1,000s, maybe it's, some number. We're going to donate this to you guys, or we'll go out and acquire the equipment or whatever you're looking for. So you ask them, what each year they want to add to the property, what new toys or what new things would they enjoy? Seniors enjoy, I think it's pickleball is the one with a smaller court.
Yep.
versus tennis. Because it's a little less hard, on them. And
I've actually played. It's cool.
Yeah, and it requires a little less space. It's not as hard on your body. So that's one thing I'm seeing a lot of senior parks. But you want to have them nominate a resident activities coordinator, and you tell that resident activities coordinator, my goal is to have 3 to 4 events a day. I want yoga, I want potlucks, I want Bible studies. I want you guys using this thing, and this is challenging in our current COVID 2020 environment, or 2021 COVID-19 environment. But
you still got to do it. You got to do something. Yeah,
I agree.
I'm 100% with you.
Put up the notices, wear your mask.
Whatever you got to do.
Yep. But yeah, and if right now you focus more on outdoor events. Yeah, I think you just want them using those facilities and that's the whole thing. I mean, let's be real. My joke is most of these people work for 40 years straight and never met the woman they were married to. I mean, or she never met, the right?
They just have their head down.
Their head down.
Working.
Yeah. So they want to be busy. They don't want to be stuck in whether it's a 400-foot RV or a small, a retirement home. These are awesome. But it's all about the outside. It's all about the lifestyle outside it. And if you create that, we're ripping off the cruise industry. We want to create a cruise ship on land. We want a place that people live longer, they have more fun. And at the end of the day, if a cup of coffee, from Starbucks costs me $4, and cable TV and internet costs me $100 a month, would I rather pay $100 more a month for a great lifestyle? 100%. I don't know how many people die on cruise ships, but I think a lot more people die at home bored than on a vacation.
Oh, right? Man, 100%. And I think that there's an old spark that when these mobile home parks were historically built, 60s, 70s, 80s, there was a magic there. There was like the owner was there hanging out, playing games, hiring a coordinator, bringing in maybe some third-party vendor, like activity people to put on a big luau or whatever. I feel like there was a sense of ownership in them, and somewhere along the line, it just got old and run down and non-maintained correctly, and it just kind of went to the next generation. And lo and behold, I feel like there's huge opportunity in breathing that new life in, like you mentioned, like
totally
just restarting that spark.
That attracts people that want to be involved in the community, attracts good residents, and they'll start telling their friends about it, and you'll become known as the activities here, center for that area. And people, you'll get kind of a waiting list of people who want to move in your park. because you're the park that offers all that fun and all those activities. So it almost starts self-selecting good tenants and steering away people that maybe just don't want to be involved in community at all.
Right.
So I think it's a great business model, man. And I'll have to maybe put a little more thought into it, but and like you were saying too, owners that are active with their residents, it's funny. I've got an owner who's building an RV park right now, and he's out there all the time throwing, doing barbecues and having live music events and things, out by the pool. It's awesome. And it's created this whole community, and the place is just jam-packed full, waiting list. So I love seeing owners and managers and, resident activity coordinators that are, involved and care about the community. RV's probably even more necessary. It's more of a rolling stock resort style lifestyle than MH, but that's great to hear that you're kind of tapping into that.
Yeah. And we're doing resident ambassadors to kind of ignite and start a crew. But then crews, it's funny, even if you don't know about a resident activities group in your park, if you start asking around, it materializes. Like it was there. It just, nobody's been asking around or putting any money behind it or, any fuel behind it. So yeah, it's neat. So we're having a lot of fun, and I'm big into that now, more focus on quality of our execution versus killing myself to grow and raise money and buy as many deals as I can fathom.
Right.
There's a good balance and a mix to be had, so.
Yeah, I think everybody gets in their kind of acquisition mode, and then they get in their, let's go back and make these places, nicer communities. And so, you kind of get, I've seen a lot of owners, sometimes, when you have the capital and you have the deals coming at you, focus on that. And then you got to, there are seasons where you hit the brakes and say, okay, let's go in and let's expand some of these properties. Let's redo them, and hopefully you get enough people around you where you can do it all at the same time.
Right.
Enough of the right people.
Yeah. And we did it. We had to hire a handful more people at the corporate office. So it's all coming together, man. So, all right. So what I was really excited about was you guys seem like you're kicking ass and, and growing. And so how was your 2020? I talked to a lot of people that 2020 really ended up being an interesting and good sound year and total transactions. Mm-hmm. And then now 2021, I'm sensing kind of another round of kind of a seller frenzy of this uncertainty with Biden. And, what are you seeing?
Yeah, 2020 was phenomenal on both the sales and the financing side. I think there was a big rush for the door at the end of the year when everybody realized that, Biden's sure going to be the president, and what a total mess. Our election cycle was. What a total mess the whole thing, the whole year was. To me, it was like watching a horror movie that felt pretty scripted. And so
I had to turn it all off. I just had to let's focus on what we can control and enjoy life. And we had a baby in November, and it was like, let's turn it all off.
Yeah. That's wise. At the end of the day, you do what you can. And I think the biggest thing, we need more people that we need more statesmen and stateswomen. We need more people that spend their life in the private sector and actually know how the real world works, and then give, once they've hit their number, I don't know what your number is, but everybody should have a passive number of income that they need to have, or retirement nest egg, and then they can go back and serve. The career politicians are, almost all to me bad. And anyways, but yeah, so, you
and I talked about that years and years ago too. Funny to do full circle on that. Like when we first met, I don't know, 6-8 years ago. And it's like, well, sooner or later, some good old boys are going to have to get back into government. And we're like, oh man.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
But I'm with you. It needs to happen. It needs to be like a volunteer 4 years and you're done.
Yeah.
Like
100%. Yeah. It's almost like it's your civic duty completely, but so with the whole chaos of last year, there was so much uncertainty, but there was definitely this rush to sell. And yeah, I think we had an absolute record year. We had about 80 parks we financed or closed. Some of those were in portfolios, but about 80, different properties that we were able to be involved with, which is awesome. And the numbers were great on on every metric. First quarter 2021, I noticed was kind of that lurch, because you had all that volume that was we got to close by the end of the year. But then, everybody wakes up and says, okay, sun's still going up and down in the morning. I'm still getting older. My kids still don't see eye to eye. We've got to do something. So we're kind of seeing the same, reignition of interest in transacting. And, it's gotten really crazy again. And I think 2022 is going to be, or 2021 is going to be a really busy year as well. And, there's that whole concern about, I guess right now we're seeing an acceleration because people are all kind of coming to the reality that taxes are almost undoubtedly going to go up.
Right.
And unfortunately in this environment, there's just going to be more regulation from the federal government over time. So it's going to kind of be a double whammy on a lot of these owners, where if you've owned it for 40 years and you don't have any major plans to grow the business or improve it or change it or add value, you're probably going to look at a diminishing, net proceeds over the next couple of years, just kind of compounded by, higher taxes and things like that coming at you. Your gross could grow, but your net could fall. If interest rates rise and tax rates rise, those two things combined give a huge effect on your net proceeds.
And cap rates are going to follow eventually if interest rates rise, and they are sort of here and there.
Yeah, so far it's been interesting because the first 75 bips of movement in the rates has not caused a cap rate compression or cap rate expansion at all.
Right.
But at some point it may catch up. I feel like the consumer, aka the investor, always lags the lending world. The lending world's very timely. I mean, we don't wake up every day checking what our park is worth, but you can go wake up every day and check what the 10-year treasury is, and the lender knows exactly what their spread is on top of that, and it changes daily.
So what do you think about the new buyer pool coming into that? And is that maybe why cap rates and things aren't moving, because there's so much heat and froth on our industry?
Yeah. No, I wrote an article for MH Insider. I think it'll be out in the July issue. And I kind of was just kind of looking back on perspective. When I was brokering these things pre-great financial crisis, and all the way through the 08 to 2012 period, it was still a majority of mom and pop buyers or individual investor decision makers. And today it's the majority of the who's who and the you name it of Wall Street and private equity and pension funds. And they need guys like you who are going to go out, build a portfolio, consolidate it. And then when you're ready to retire one day, they'll all be lined up to buy your portfolio. But yeah, I think we've went from probably 10 funds that were, what you'd classify as $1 billion or greater fund to well over 50 today. I remember one day some client told me, "Oh, we got an offer from $1 billion group." And I said, "Really, which one?" And they were kind of surprised that there was more than one. And so I started making a list of my $1 billion, funds. And
wow,
now we have multiple $1 trillion funds that are actually, buying parks.
Who's that? Is that
BlackRock is shortly in the space. At this point, they're not officially in the space, but BlackRock's over $1 trillion under management. Prudential's got $1 trillion under management total. You've got Invesco looking at the space as a $1 trillion fund. There's probably almost as many $1 trillion asset managers today as there were $1 billion asset managers 10 years ago in our space.
How crazy is that?
It's weird. And the group of $1 billion, I think my group is broken down by private equity, pension, family office, REIT. I've got kind of different buckets or baskets of buyers by category, and they all operate differently. They all are different characteristics. But yeah, I would say that's the number one reason why we haven't seen cap rates follow interest rates. It's just because of increased interest and demand.
Yep.
You will always have a limited number of mobile home parks in the market at any given time. One of my pet peeves is when somebody calls me and they're in a 1031, they need to place a deal, and you show them a deal that makes 99% chance or sense. And they're like, "Well, we just don't like the treatment plant. We just don't like the, this or that." I'm like, you got
to figure the treatment out, budget some money to fix that treatment up.
Yeah. You don't custom order these things. They come one at a time,
Yes.
And if you got a 45-day window anyway, then you've got to make some decisions whether you're really motivated or whether you want to pay taxes.
Right. I couldn't agree more. And that's where, when we're hunting for deals, it's like we're really trying now not to be choosy, other than just making sure the area and like we understand and or is rent control coming down the pike in some locations, or things of that nature. But
yeah, which is interesting too. What's funny is about rent control, for instance, you've got a lot of smaller investors and old legacy owners that are just very very upset about rent control, and frankly, it doesn't solve anything in the long run. And the real solution for the tenant is to have more of our product type built. But the rent control is it works for certain types of buyers. There are institutional players out there that kind of like a fixed coupon of rent increases. And they don't need to have outsized rates of returns, and they're totally fine with rent control. So, yeah, there's different buyers for different regions and different buyers for totally different appetites. We have certain groups that love to buy all rental home portfolios, love to build all rental home portfolios, where a lot of us don't like the park-owned home business.
Yep.
But there's that's the neat thing, is there seems to be a buyer for anything today if it can make financial sense. There's a good buyer for it.
Yeah. Well, there's a play in each case, like you said.
Yeah.
And cap rate typically is not as tight on the rent control deals. And I've looked at some of the Palm Springs deals and like the California stuff, and we don't love it because we're after, wealth building and we're not in coupon clipping mode. But, I get it. And it is like, it's going to be full. I mean, you're never going to have, basically that rent roll is going to be paid every month. No questions asked.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
That coupon investor who just wants to, make their 3.5% or 4% a year loves that, because there's, it guarantees the tenants have a ton of equity and turnover is virtually non-existent. So yeah, there's a profile buyer for that.
Love it. Yep. I agree. And it's probably, in the end, is probably healthier and a little bit better from like a brokerage and keeping movement in the market to have a more diverse buyer pool. That's interesting.
No, 100%. What's sad about the government regulation is it, when you look at it from a perspective of, the owner who owned it pre extreme regulation or let's call it, moderate regulation, it's all unacceptable to them. But when you go in knowing the rules of the game, a buyer can get very comfortable with that. And so, yeah, we're doing that we're seeing that all the time. There's plenty of buyers siphoning out of these West Coast markets that are very mature and very regulated into more Wild West markets, or more opportunistic, less regulated markets. And then there's a group of institutional buyers that just want that coupon. And so, that's the virtuous cycle of let that family that wants to have more opportunity and more leeway move their money to Arizona or move it to Florida or move it to some other market and fix up those properties. And then in these very mature, very stabilized markets, we'll sell that to, a sovereign wealth fund or a pension fund or, something like that. That wants very stable rate of return.
Man, it's wild. Yeah. Cause I always wonder, like, why are they not after this single wide deal with 20% vacant?
Right. No,
they don't want it.
They don't want the work, and I've been recently taking, I've been on a tangent of kind of finding out what people are spending to build spaces. And the difference between a mom and pop or a small, nimble operator who has his own equipment and knows construction and the biggest operators is vast. It's double. So if you wonder why some of these players are spending X on a space, to buy an existing property, it's because it costs them so much to replace them. And so they don't have the manpower, they don't have the team, and from their corporate office, they're going to get ripped off. They get ripped off in construction. They're going to get ripped off in timeline. There's going to be some kickbacks, internally. So they'd rather have, that again. That's why capitalism works. A guy like you can go in, value add, fill spaces, get on the ground. You're not trying to manage $1 billion or $100 billion.
Yes.
When you get to that point where you just imagine, I always.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell people. You imagine,
you can't get homes now. It's crazy. So we did almost 100 homes in 2020.
Wow.
Throughout our portfolio,
Yeah,
and
amazing.
Now it's like it's like crickets out there. So we have an allocation. So we basically are going to get another 100 homes every year now, as long as we continue to order homes, and have spaces. So now I need, what's interesting about everything you're saying is, because we did that, now I'm like, well, I'm shopping for spaces. I'm shopping for vacancies, because we have this allocation of homes that if we don't use, we lose, and we're not going to get it back. Sun is going to take it from us, or whoever. The big dogs.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
And so it's interesting, but I hadn't really thought fully about it. Like the Blackstones, the Carlisles, they don't have the manpower to throw behind it. I mean, we have an operations guy, Tide, that you'll meet at this year's event, I'm sure. But that's what he does. I mean, that's all he does is work on those types of construction projects. So it's a lot of work. With all of the people in the field, and measuring the sites and coordinating with the setup crews, and getting in with the setup crews is even difficult. So you're 100% right. I mean, they would get taken to the, for
they do.
Really expensive.
They just do. It's just, so there's, in most real estate, you have merchants, and you have merchant developers, merchant builders, merchant operators, and you have kind of your long-term holders. And, we're just like all the other asset classes. And, you're buying stuff that individually is maybe not attractive to a big player. I mean, some of the stuff, I'm sure you're buying like Desorama. It's very attractive to the big players, but you can buy stuff that's really scratch and dent, that really is going to get missed by the big capital allocators. And then you can make it very attractive and put it in a portfolio of 10 properties and get massive appreciation. It's I've got clients, I've got a client who's got about 4,000 RV spaces. And whenever we sell them a deal, I'm like, the day you close, you get 150 basis point, cap rate compression.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Just by scale.
Yeah. And then you add on top of that, better systems, be able to know how to grow the revenue faster, know how to grow the business faster, cross-pollination between properties. I mean, there's so much upside if you're a good operator and you're organized that unfortunately most, single property owners just will never be able to take advantage of.
You're right. I'm actually seeing that now as we get and continue to grow in Arizona, and now we're starting to look outside of Arizona. But it's amazing the numbers that, just even if we were just to kind of package up and continue to grow, let's say to get to like 1,000 spaces in Tucson, that number would be staggering in compared to what you'd actually buy one for.
Oh yeah, totally. As it should be. I mean, you're talking 10 contracts, you're talking multiple misses, you're talking a lot of, brain damage trying to work out deals with complex seller situations. And so you should get rewarded for that process. Plus,
time.
Uniformity and good financials and all the things that we just don't benefit from when you're dealing with a unsophisticated seller.
Every time we ever look at something, even off market, that we're, calling, let's see if we can buy the deal next door. We get the handwritten, a T12. I got a handwritten T12 for the first time. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh yeah. It's so funny. We've seen everything. I remember the box on a 430 space property. I got a box of financials, and they were all longhand. But what they didn't realize is the summary page. They had Xerox copied these, and they had left a bunch of sticky notes in the summary pages.
So you couldn't read it.
And having to try to manually figure out what those totals were was brain damage, complete brain damage. So yeah, totally. There should be a reward for guys going out there or groups going out there and doing the hard work.
Yeah, it's a repackaging. You're right. I mean, that was what I was telling the guys. Like, look what we went through to get this thing done and closed, and now we're gonna have cleaned up financials, all with Rent Manager, all the same.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
Okay, so what states? Where are you bullish?
Thinking about that, everywhere. I mean, essentially, it's what's amazing about COVID is I looked at what's happened with single family home prices across the country, and basically, detached housing has become very popular. People our age were moving to the cities, and they were moving to the coastal cities, the big cities, the liberal cities. Yep. And then all those places got shut down, and those restaurants that they loved and those bars they loved, or the movie theaters or the plays or whatever it was that was drawing them to those big cities, all got shut down. And I think hopefully it's a referendum on big government. that's my desire. But what it did is I think it brought back the suburbs. It brought back the detached housing. So, I mean, there's bright spots from Mansfield, Ohio to small towns all over Florida to, Texas. There's bright spots everywhere on the map. I mean, I don't care if you're West Coast or East Coast, there's opportunity about everywhere. We just hired a gentleman to cover the upper Midwest. And this is a region that I think is, there's some pockets in there that have gotten a lot of attention, and there's other pockets that are starting to get attention. But this is Iowa, Minnesota, and all the way to the Dakotas. And I'm really optimistic about some of those markets. They're business friendly, again, just like every other market in the country, there's a lot of owners that have owned properties for a long time and have not, maximized those properties, and now, they're just more ready to part with them than reinvest millions of dollars or go out there and rebuild it. So there's, I guess that, as a generic answer, that's what I'd say is there's kind of opportunity everywhere. I'm trying to think if anything really stands out to me. Personally, one thing I spent the last 6 months working on is kind of the far end of RV. Everybody gets into mobile home parks for their stability, for the coupon nature. I've been spending more time on the glamping and the hospitality side. Yep. It's cool. I mean, and there's in Florida, the average RV park probably grosses $4,000 to $5,000 a space. But in regionally, if you're in Naples, you'll do $8,000 to $9,000 a space. If you're in Southeast Florida, you'll do $10,000 a space. If you're in the Panhandle, you can do that. So there's regional markets that do a lot more. But let's just say the average RV space nationwide is $5,500 of revenue per year.
Yeah.
If you bring in a glamping cabin or glamping tent or a park model, nice luxury tent or luxury cabin on that lot,
sure,
you can take that revenue, which is $5,500, a year on that space, blend it out per night. That's $15 a night is what people are paying to stay in that space. You can take that all the way up. And I'll give you a crazy example. I was in the Keys this week, we're working on a deal under contract there. And, it's a very, very tight market, very little product down there. But somebody went in and bought an RV park for, I think, $10 million, 120 space RV park, 10, 12 million bucks. So $100,000 a space. Sounds like a lot of money to a lot of us. And then they went in and totally redid it and probably spent another $15 million on it. So they're into this property, $25 to $30 million.
Wow.
They've got 120 bungalows, and their average nightly rate is $1,000 a night, and they're booked.
Whoa.
So take. It
is. I mean, it is. It's something different. It's badass. I think everyone's kind of over the suites model.
Yeah.
Like the typical 4-story hotel little model. Come on, that's not cool. That's not something you want to go stay at.
Yeah, look, I mean, they're like, look, we just get nonstop honeymoons and anniversaries. That's basically what we're specializing in. It's on the beach, and then you have privacy. It's a beautiful project. The guy's done a few around the country. I remember a very smart guy in the industry told me years ago that RV parks are just backdoor zoning to hotels. And so that's, the glamping business is hot right now. And
everyone bought RVs too. So everyone's going to need a place to park these RVs.
Totally.
Bottom.
Totally. Yeah. The sales are, they were actually starting to slightly wane. The RV sales have been at like 500,000 units a year for a long time. In 2019, they started dropping, I think for the first time, like 7-8 years. This is just totally off the top of my head. I may have the exact timing of that wrong, but they started kind of waning, and then COVID hit. And of course, we all went into fetal position for a little while, and then boom, as soon as everybody gets out of fetal position, everybody ran out and bought an RV. I had so many clients that never dreamed of being in an RV that bought their first RV or were taking the first RV trip because they're afraid of being on a plane. And once you've invested in that RV, whether it's the $50,000 model or the $500,000 model or the $2 million model, you're invested and you're going to use it.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that, the RV industry is an industry whose time has come. And so that's one area I'm really excited about. But I think you can go in and stratify, a manufactured home community from the 60s and redo the homes. Basically every time a home comes up for sale for less than $10,000, you snatch that home. You can even put policies in place that your residents can't resell homes over a certain age without an inspection level or no resales below a certain amount. And you can always acquire those homes back and fix them up and gentrify that place and make it a cool, young, brand new community in a lot of ways, as life for another 40 years. And, it's interesting as you drive markets and you can see an owner that doesn't care and doesn't do anything to their property. And then an owner, young, entrepreneurial owner that goes in and fixes a property up. You can see the whole, you can see the value added by somebody who comes with a new sets of eyes. And so that's what I think is kind of cool in our industry, is going in and breathing new life in these properties. You got to hit those water and sewer lines and electric lines that are 50 years old and spend some real money underground, which is expensive and complicated. But once you do that, this thing could go for another 50 years.
Oh man. And it's such a cool low density spin on things. Like I've heard a lot of the cities even now, and I think COVID kind of opened up some opportunities. Now you're not going to get raw land maybe rezoned to mobile home park, but if you got an old kind of crummy mobile home park or RV park in a good location, there's an argument that they kind of want to help you and spool that up and allow you to occupy these awesome new kind of cool homes or bungalows or cabins or, so I'm with you. That's really cool. I'm excited about a couple of good, well-located deals like that I come across every once in a while too.
Yeah. And I think if you go down and you talk to building and zoning and say, look, this thing's been let go for the last 40 years, it's kind of declined, and we want to go in and breathe new life in it, they're going to come to your side. They're going to be your biggest, supporter in most cases. Obviously, at the end of the day, these people often look at, hey, the mobile home park doesn't pay enough taxes and it creates problems for us. In their perspective, a poorly ran park is creating more police, 911 calls for them. It's creating more, other services needed. So sometimes you'll have a municipality that's just anti-park. But if you go down there and show them, hey, this thing's not going anywhere. If the market wanted it to be a skyscraper, it would already be one and they would have outbid me. But the highest and best use is still a well-ran, park. And let me, help me out with fixing this thing up. I mean, one thing I've seen that's very common sense and just a great idea is, if you want to turn the culture of a community, first you got to lead by example. You got to redo the roads, you got to redo the signage, you got to have somebody to answer the phone, you got to have active management. But go down to your local police department and ask them if they have a deputy that'd like a free place to live, or create a substation in the front of your park for the police department where you always have, I hate to use the cliche, fresh coffee and donuts, right. and they know they have a place to come work out of, and just get involved with the local community and embrace them, and get security and get local police involved and clean the place up. And again, you can make it a safe, family-oriented community and make the kids' lives better that live there, and make the families' lives better that live there, and make some money in the process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's really cool. And there's a lot of ideas in there, and it's neat to see that in Florida, you're seeing a lot of those guys do that. And so we, in the long term, we'd love to continue to work on deals. Florida is one of our main targets now, just because I just would bet on it, just like Arizona. I realize that it's competitive as hell, but in the long term, I think it's, we're going to focus more on it.
Sure.
And continue to learn and come out and spend some time. So we'll have to get together. But yeah, man. So, all right. So, so the wrap up question that I actually get a lot of kick out of is you just came up with a $10 million, win. You either made it or you won it, hit the lottery.
Jackpot. Yeah.
Yeah. What would be your allocation into real estate, parks? Obviously mobile home parks and RV parks is our main topic, and then what else? Other investments.
That's funny. I'm buying gold and resources personally. I'm a gold and silver guy. I think we both, like Robert Kiyosaki and some of cool guys. Some kind of I got that part of my portfolio. I believe that if a lot of raw materials are going to be very valuable in the future, and so I like that sector. I've got a little crypto investment just because you can't ignore it anymore. It's just a small portion, but yeah, the majority of my investments are currently in real estate and in manufactured housing. I am getting more involved in the RV space as we speak. Where when we get a call from a smaller developer that wants to develop a park, and I love the location, I love the story, I find out if I can invest with them on top of, Chris putting together the financing, and on top of us helping them with kind of business modeling and stuff like that. I ask them if we can invest alongside them. So the way I see it is manufactured housing and investing with good operators like you guys is kind of my coupon, money that's in your typical portfolio allocation. Maybe it's 70% of that and then 30% to kind of more opportunistic stuff. Personally, I'm probably more like 50% to coupon, 40% to things like RV right now, and involved in a couple of glamping conversions, which I'm really excited about outside of some really cool, big city, big population centers. And then 10% is in, silly stuff, like crypto and gold and silver and, whatever else you find, that you enjoy. I enjoy antiques. I enjoy art. Those are kind of the fringe stuff that I enjoy putting money into. But yeah, I think, hey, gold's down right now and Bitcoin's through the roof. I'll get some money to gold.
Cool. I love it, man. I agree with you. And it's neat to hear. People have actually really surprised me on that answer, but your answer is more along the lines of how I look at it as well. So it's just fun.
Yeah. I wish I was more creative or doing something interesting. And I will say,
the glamping stuff's pretty interesting though. And the mobile home park and the coupon clipping, and we're all in on mobile home parks, as you know, but we are looking at like the RV component. We've filled a few of our parks that had not a huge, like 20, 30 spaces of RV component. We filled them with park models and it killed it, and so, all of that, but the glamping thing is fun. Like that's a fun little thing to see how that goes. And nobody wants to go into a big hotel right now. It's about kind of getting your own space and something new, so that's cool.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I always was drawn to hospitality space and ended up in this space because it made more sense from an investment standpoint. But personally, I always enjoyed the hospitality space. I always thought there was, more opportunity to go in and add some serious value. You could, you look at a poorly ran hotel in a good location, there's ability to triple the revenue. And you could do that in the RV space. In the manufactured housing space, if you can move the needle 40-50% on revenue, you're doing really good. Right. But to be able to 3x revenue and have a huge outsized rate of return, you got to get a little more creative. And, and I guess what I find is everybody seems to have, either a family, industry that they really know, whether it's, I don't care if it's cattle or corn or, mining or something else that's a niche that your family knows, that's your cash cow that makes you the revenue you get to invest in these other kind of more stable, slow growth. This is get rich slow. It still is. I mean, it is.
There's no quick scheme. You gotta add value. You actually have to bring value to the table.
Totally.
In any case. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've got friends I invest with that are doing cool things and I put a little bit of money into those businesses to see if any of those end up outsized returns. We're talking to some buddies who are in the tech space and all those things, but I try to stay head down 60 hours a week, focused on our industry.
Well, cool. Well, hey, James, really good seeing you and catching up, buddy. And I'm going to be making my way out to Florida here soon, or towards the end of the year. But we have a baby and I've been trying to figure out the best time to travel but I think we're coming up on it. So as long as it's not too hot in the summer, maybe I'll come out and say hi and have a drink.
Yeah. Come see me. Let's coordinate offline and see kind of what your hot buttons are. Let's see if we got anything that fits either on market or off market. And then, we've got this nationwide team for a reason. We got, Dana is killing it down in Texas, and we just kind of made it very clear she's in charge of Oklahoma. We got Ken that just came on, and he's going to cover the upper Midwest. James is covering the Midwest, and Charles is covering the Southeast outside of Florida, what I call Old South. Harrison covering the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Brian's covering the traditional Rocky Mountain region. Max, whose family's owned parks all over Arizona for years, is now in New Mexico and Arizona. And then you get the West Coast guys, Chad covering the Pacific Northwest and Dan covering the Pacific Southwest. And every time I get on the road, I love these regions, whether it's Springfield, Missouri, or whether it's, Indianapolis, or whether it's, Philadelphia. I'm invested in almost every region of this country, and there are bright spots in every region of this country. And there's money to be made if you're willing to work for it and do a good job for your residents.
That's cool. And that's a good sum up. And it's neat to hear your perspective because a lot of people don't travel as much. Like I don't have a good reason other than to chase deals and look at deals, but you're looking at them all the time as a broker now, managing that whole team. And that's amazing. So that's cool to hear that you'd like every piece of the country versus
there's opportunity in every region. And there's guys making a fortune. There's guys and girls and businesses making a fortune in every region. And so it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Dude, good seeing you. Congratulations on the new baby. Can't wait to see you in person.
Hey, sounds good, James. Have a good one, bud.
You too. Cheers.
All right, that wraps up the Trailer Park Podcast. Hit the subscribe button for some more great industry professional conversations about buying trailer parks.